Welcome to episode 446 of the AM/PM podcast. My guest this week is none other than Dream 100 member Danny McMillan. Danny's been around this game for quite some time. He's a thought leader. He's leading the way when it comes to research on Amazon's patents and scientific papers when it comes to Cosmo and Rufus and all the AI changes. He also hosts an event, Seller Sessions, one of the most popular events in the European market. And he's got an agency and some thoughts on what's happening in the agency world right now. This is going to be an interesting discussion. I hope you enjoy this talk with Danny McMillan.
Welcome to the AM/PM podcast. Welcome to the AM/PM podcast, where we explore opportunities in e-commerce.
We dream big and we discover what's working right now.
Plus, this is the podcast where money never sleeps, working around the clock in the AM and the PM.
Are you ready for today's episode?
I said, are you ready? Let's do this. Here's your host, Kevin King. Kevin King.
Mr. Danny McMillan, how you doing, man? Good to have you here on the AM/PM podcast. I think it's been a day or two.
Yes, it has. You gracefully took care of me over in Iceland, so thank you for that. It was lovely to come over.
It's good to have you over. I mean, it was just a short little hop. You know, what's it like to go to a conference where you don't have to have jet lag?
Yeah, it's refreshing, really, wasn't it? You know, I mean, Prague isn't going to give you jet lag, but we'd already just done Prosper, didn't we? Like, I mean, you came straight in and put on an event, and it takes a lot out of you to
Two
do
events.
Two events, yeah. So
and
you
three at Prosper, three at MDS, Prosper, and then a podcast show with Norm.
Yes, indeed. I don't know where you get the energy. So
and a few weeks before that, we did a Market Masters in Austin. It's a lot. That's for sure. I mean, you produce events. You have one coming up, Seller Sessions. Probably it's one of the top events in the European market. You've been doing that how many years now? About 7, 8, something like that.
2019. So yeah, we've been going 6 years.
Oh, same as me on BDSS. I thought you started it before that.
No, the podcast started at the beginning of 2017, and then it was 2019 that we did the first one in terms of the conference.
Yeah, you're doing. They always been one day. No, you did a 2-day event once. You did a woman one, right?
Yeah, yeah. So what happened was we did June 1st, 2019 was the first Seller Sessions. And then we had COVID, and I moved the date 6 times. It cost me about 40 grand because you had to keep laying out money. Yeah. And obviously COVID changed. Then we did that 21 in the October. And that was the one that, then we did that one. It was the first event out of COVID because it was like that little week or so gap. So we were, they allow open and it was safe for the distancing and stuff. And we fell into that. And I think we was the first out the traps in terms of conferences. But I did move it 6 times because I was over, what's the word for it? Not overconfident. You just want to get back. So you go, look, do you know what? I'm just going to book it and then we'll see what happens. And I had to move it 6 times. But we got it out. It was great because people hadn't been out properly. It's the first time. And then in 22, we did Branded by Women. What we did is we did Seller Sessions on a Saturday and then did Branded by Women on a Friday. And that allowed.
I was at that one.
Yeah, that was 22. Yeah, so you were there because you were there with Isabella. She was leading that with Sharon. And so that was 22. So we did the 2 one-day conferences together, and then a lot of people, we subsidised the ticket, and it means it could roll into 2. So people come for like workshops and the VIP dinner and the Friday drinks. So by doing that and being able to do a cooped-in price for that event and that, it kind of worked well together to do the both.
Now, the events in Europe are different than the events in the US. They're usually quite a bit smaller when it comes to the Amazon world.
Yeah.
And there's not nearly as many of them.
No.
And from what you've told me, they're a harder sell. It's harder to get the Europeans to come out to events than it is to get the Americans.
Well, I always say this because we do have American friends who come over and they go, I'm going to go and do UK, and then end up with 12 people down in Manchester and you never see them again. Because what it is, and I don't mean that in a funny way, like UK is tiny, right? And if you think, when you all got the mindset of the US, you look around, right? There's conferences, there's events on all the time, yeah? And it's a bigger country, there's more per capita of the sellers. And what happens is you find in Europe, like half my audience, they fly in. So they're coming in from Estonia, Germany, Spain, Italy, Romania, and then the other half will be UK. And what I've noticed is part of the reason, we just sold our 6th one out. It's incredible we've done that considering the market at the moment.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But that part of that reason is, one, we're small, we're 200 or less. Now we're at 147 because we've got all the workstations now. So it takes up more capacity in the venue for the layout. And I say this to people because what they do is they go, Dan, you should do it every 3 months, every 6 months. Now, if I did that, then you don't have that demand because everyone goes, oh, I'll go to the next one. I'll go to the next one. And I won't name names, but someone tried to do that a couple of years ago, about 18 months ago. Amazon stuck 350 grand behind it and they went off and done all these events. But
yeah, they did like a little tour around the world.
Yeah. And the problem with that is
it didn't work.
Well, it's not just that part of it. There's many factors, as you know, putting on an event, right? It isn't, a lot of people will look at seller sessions or look at $1 billion seller summit. And I've had people in the UK because I've helped them bow out. Like I know someone who booked somewhere over the O2. It wasn't the arena or anything, but he said, I looked at seller sessions and I thought, I can do that. And I started putting my tickets out, put them out. They were a bit more than yours, Dan. They were $499. He didn't have anyone on lineup and stuff. And he said, he contacted me one day. He said, Dan, I just don't understand. I said, first thing, I've had an audience, right? And the second thing, you've not put anyone on the lineup. You've looked at what we do, the mechanics, and think that works. And I say that because for you, do you remember we used to joke, like you had the old school websites, like a notepad.
Yeah.
And I always said, like, it's because you're Kevin King, right? Because you built those relationships. It's almost like, well, I can do websites like that. But other people that don't have the branding or have the support or built a community and stuff like that, you can't just stick on events and expect them to fill out. And the second thing is, for us in the UK, it takes a year to do that build, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, I mean, I've probably been doing events just as long as you. I did my first event in 94. So this is my 31 years I've been putting on events on and off. I didn't do them every single year, but I have done since 2019. But I put on my first events and I've done and co-promoted even at Wembley Conference Centre, Revolution, for a label I worked with. We've done some bigger events as well, but I did a lot of smaller events throughout that period as well. But this has been more of my most consistent part. But after years of doing events, you realise it's about experience. Yep. It depends on, your experience is going to be different to mine, right? In terms of what you do and the way that you do it and the way that we do it here. But you have a character as part of that, right? So people are buying into something that they can get their head around. It's not just generic. There's something about it that they like, which attracts them. And that is part of doing events, because you know this as well. Like, events are a zero-sum game. The moment you got a half-empty venue, the customers don't come back. They go, well, this is right. And then you're not going to get the sponsors, because the sponsors are going to nickel and dime you. So, well, the last one didn't, how about we knock that down by, 75% and we'll see how you get on. Do you understand what I mean? So what we do is a zero-sum game if it's like, atrocious. So events are hard, and they're harder now, and they'll carry on getting harder to do. I don't know if you agree.
I agree. There's a big change in both of us. When you're pivoting, we'll talk about that in here in just a second. You're pivoting this year in the way that you're doing seller sessions. I'm pivoting next year in the way I'm doing BDSS.
Yeah.
Because there is a change. One, there's a ton of events, and people have to choose. They can't just go to everything.
Yeah.
And then a lot of them are they're cookie cutter, like you just said. They're just the same old thing. They're not really an experience. And I mean, as you know, you've been to a couple BDSSs. We make them a total experience.
I mean, look, let's look at you. Like when I'm like 7-Eleven compared to you guys. Do you know what I mean? You're high roller events. So mine is. I used to joke about this with Athena. I said, look, you've got Instagram, and like we do Ghetto Fabulous. Do you know what I mean? With the other end of the market and own it. Does that make sense? So, and like you do very luxurious events, but that is your thing, and that's what makes it what it is, and why people go, because no one does events like you. Yeah, you're not cooking.
Yeah, there's no one even remotely close in the.
No.
I mean, the closest might be Titan from what they do from a production value, but it's completely different. It's a completely different.
So that's a network, right? That's a network,
and
it's a different vibe to what you do. People buy in to Kevin King, and people have listened to the podcast. I'm not Kevin King, but what people have told me is they look to me and go, Dan does his best to bring the best he can, right? And that's the bit that they support. Whereas people come because it's Kevin King for you. Do you understand? So there is a difference between the two. You've got a much bigger audience, as I've always said to you. Like you're the gatekeeper of this industry, pound for pound. You're the guy. Yeah. So when the ball moves, it normally moves through you. Does that make sense?
I guess that happens in some cases, but yeah, there is a lot of influence through the different things that I do.
That's right.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So in the conference space, though, I'm seeing, like you just said, there's a lot of people that try it and they do it and they lose. They do one, they realize this is real work. They lose a lot of money. But you've made a shift, and both of us. I have a new event now called Market Masters,
Yeah.
which I don't know if you saw if you were in the room when we did the demo in Iceland, or if you were away
I'd love
taking care of
to.
some.
Yeah.
So so, but that event is becoming my flagship event now, because it's so powerful. Because when you go to conferences, a lot of people are like, "What's the difference?" I just watch this on one of these free things online, or watch some YouTube videos, or I listen to these speakers, and sometimes the talk is good, sometimes I'm bored out of my mind, sometimes I'm in the hallway and I miss it, or I have to go take a phone call and I miss it. Um, why am I going? And then I'm being spoken. These speakers are speaking at me versus speaking to me. And so now I'm doing this Market Masters event where we have someone sits in a hot seat. It's not on a stage. There is no stage. There is no PowerPoint presentations. There's no TV. No nothing. And they sit in a boardroom basically, and I curate based on their needs. They fill out this long questionnaire based on their needs. I curate 7 or 8 experts. It could be Dream 100 people. It could be different people. They come in and they spend 2.5 hours with them, going up and down in a very structured, organized, curated way their business. And at the end of the day, of each one of these, the people that they leave there with like, man, I got an action plan right now of exactly what I need to do specifically for me. I just didn't listen to 10 presentations on stage, and only 2 of them applied to me. And then they have the rest of the weekend to go and network with these people, plus about 20 other experts, in addition to the 7 or 8 that were on their hot seat panel over the weekend. And it's powerful. And then the experts get a lot from it too, that are participating, because they're learning from other experts in these sessions and stuff that they didn't know. So it's extremely powerful. And you're kind of switched seller sessions this year to be more or less of a stage presentations, is my understanding, to more of a, you hear people say we're going to do workshop format, or we're going to everybody bring your laptops and whip them out, and we're going to, do hands-on. But a lot of times those things are not executed very well.
Yes.
And it
And I'll
turns into
explain that. Yeah.
it turns into a mess. But I know you, and I know the way you're doing things, but I don't completely understand exactly how you're doing it. So maybe you can explain.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's confusion with the website and you had to change it,
Yeah.
because people were confused.
They
So
thought
what
it
is
was
it?
they thought it was a speed dating event for Amazon sellers. So basically, I used to teach audio engineering at the 2 leading London schools, Alchemia and Point Blank. I was there for like 10 years. So I come from a teaching background. And when you've got complex subjects, there have to be means and ways to break them down. And the VARC model is as old as day, right? So visual, auditory, reading, and kinesthetic is through doing. So these are all your touch points in terms you learn. Some people learn more through visual. Some people, like developers, they like to read documentation, right? And some people learn passively, or they listen to a podcast, etc. But there is a way, if you mix all those together, it helps, because if you're in a conference, for instance, or any note taking, when you write down notes, you retain that in your short-term memory, yeah? But then the application part and the visual part will help with the long-term memory. Now, the way that we've designed it, every part of it has a live element. So people work on their laptop. We've got a ClickUp document that's been designed into a full curriculum for each section of the day. And so whilst they be there hands-on, so Jeff, I'll give some of it away now, he's breaking everything down on the Milrow board and going into detail what he's helped, 30 sellers get to like 8 figures. He's worked, and obviously he had his own brand that in COVID he peaked at 60 mil, but then sold after that. And then he invested in a tea brand that's on Amazon as well. And so if you imagine, if he's going through and he's breaking down the whole structure, and he's well known for this, he does a lot of work for agencies in the space for scaling, and software companies, just to make sure they're dialed in. So he's very good at that. But if he's sitting there and he's just talking, you've got no context, right? So when you're in front of your laptop, and it changes through everyone's different sessions, because they're not just the same way of doing things. if he's speaking and he's going through it, you can see on the screen, you can open the mirror board there because you've got your own copy of it. But then it's got all the curriculum as well. So all the sections of the mirror board will all have the text as well. So you attend this conference.
Explain a mirror board. People that don't know what that is. What is that?
Oh, okay. So if you think like a mind map, there's many softwares out there. Mirror board is an example. We'll have a demo account. You can use them for free because the idea, even like with the tools I've built, they're all free. You haven't got to have subscriptions and tied in to stuff as well. So basically, he'll map everything out in a very, very structured way and helps with the comprehension because Jeff is very good at getting things across and explaining information in plain English. And then what will happen, let's say you're head of the brand. When you go home, you've got this long document, which is also like an SOP. So you haven't got to train your staff. You haven't got to write up the notes. You can give it to them. And if like when people leave a conference, they'll come back to their notes 3 weeks later. They've lost context because they go, well, I got the slides, I took some pictures and I wrote some notes. And then you believe you know enough about it and then you don't execute. So the idea with the document as well is you're able to pick that document up in 12 months' time, even if you haven't looked at it, because of all the walkthroughs and everything else, it's all in there. You'd be able to execute on it. Does that make sense?
It's almost like a whiteboard that just scrolls down, and
Well, that's just
it has
Jeff's
all the
section.
notes and everything, all the demonstrations and everything in
So,
there.
so basically, you've seen like with a ClickUp document. So inside of the ClickUp document, there'll be all in sections. So you have like the introductions. I've got like a demo on the website that me and Warner did a short one for Carbon 6 last year, and it worked very well. So you will be hands-on, but then some people are going to take a break. Do you know what I mean? Or not keep up with that part. But what we do also is what's called shadowing, because in a classroom, let's say you think with a workshop, it's only 1 or 2 people. Well, there's 6 of us, and we've all been working on this since January. So we know each other's content. So that allows you to shadow the room as well. So while, say, Sim's up there, me, Warner, and everyone else is walking around, and it's much more integrated, it's much more interactive. Because when you're, like you said, you're not talking at people, you're discussing with them as you're going through it. And because you've got like an hour and a half or whatever, it might sound like a lot of time, but you've got to allow more time for the comprehensions and the shifts there, and for them to do things and demo things in the room. They won't have to log into their Seller Central account. So that's the whole thing. We've spent 6 months building this. How do we implement this? We have to think, when you're a teacher, you have lesson plans. Part of the lesson plans is you start with the end in mind. So they know what the picture that's being built. Like, I'll give you an example. If I was demonstrating mixing down a record in the music college, I would play the track. And then I'll play the track, and then I go, okay, this is what we're working to. And then I'll break it down. I bring in the kick drum, the hi-hat. And do you understand what I mean? So you start with the end in mind, and by the time they walk through it, they get to the end and they get something similar. Obviously, they don't have the mixing
What about
skill.
people that are at different levels?
Well, that's the whole thing. That's why it's been designed that way as well.
Okay.
There are going to be people at different levels. And so if people do drift, it doesn't matter so much, because they're not going to panic because they've got all the documentation and they can walk through it. You know, like with my section with the tools, you got all the screen grabs, you click on the link, you access the tool, you do what you're meant to do, you upload, it's all there. Do you see what I mean? I would demonstrate it. They'll have sample materials, so they don't have to log in to Seller Central. So let's say one of the tools uses a .csv file, okay, and it's got listing information, etc., etc. They upload that. They can see how all the tool works, the tool's being explained. And so you basically, everything is designed so that you can do it there. You can be efficient about it. Yeah. We're not going to sit there and read out science papers and talk about the Bayesian update. That's not what we're doing. What's happening is we're sharing all the stuff that we do. So if there's a situation where it gets voted in, like say Sim does something and it's similar to Matt, but Sim does it better than Matt, yeah, then Sim's version goes in because he's had more impact with that on his business. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it sounds like speed dating for Amazon sellers.
It definitely sounds like speed dating for Amazon sellers. But yeah, so we're experimenting with a format, and the good news.
Why the switch? Why the switch?
Because I can't keep getting up every year to do the same thing. If I'm not on my game or interested, I can't get up for it because it's a grind for me. Like that January to March, April, May is just a grind, right? Because
why do you do it? Why did you start Seller Sessions? Why do you continue doing it? I mean, you said you have a small margin on it. Are you doing it?
At the moment, I have a small margin. So what's happened is over the years, I've not put my ticket price up. It's the same price since the same grouping, 299, 349 and 399. And then over the years where we've had to like move venues and increase in costs, my margin starts to disappear. So I'll give an example. This year, the current venue, which I'll leave, what I tend to do, I do dry hires and bring all my people in. Then I own the show in that sense. So I do a dry hire. But which you'll find, and I've had to advise a few people on this, like people do conferences in Germany and stuff, they never make any money because, and it's not just about making money, right? But if you're doing events and you don't have a software and you're using that as a marketing tool, as a loss leader, see right now, a lot of events that you go, well, that's a marketing spend. Yeah. If you've got a network and you're signing people up or you've got a software.
Yeah, it's lead gen.
It's lead gen, right?
Yeah.
So even if you break even or whatever, that's fine. But I treat it like a proper business. Why do events if you're not going to make a profit? There's difference between that and being greedy. But what's happened is, perfect example is like the venue. Let's sit down, Dan. They'll look around. They go, right, he's having it right off. And then we need to do the food next year. And I'm like, I don't know if you can compete with my catering team on the pricing and that. She said, no, we can't do it. We'd have to do I went, all right, I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's do open book. And I showed her my spreadsheets, open book, invoices, everything. And I said, just so that you know, I'm not trying to be that guy that's go, yeah, I only paid X, Y, and Z. I gave her the invoices and the breakdown of the food. And when I handed it over, I said, that's what I paid in 19, 21, 22, 23. And then this year it's gone up slightly by a little amount. And when she looked at it, she went, I can't get anywhere near that. I said, I know you can't get anywhere near it. And this is why we're going to have this conversation where I buy a car off you for 10 grand. And when I turn up, you say, no, it's 20. And then you go, well, I feel a little bit slighted by this. I'm now going to set 5 to 10 grand. You know, that's how I had to explain it to her. So lo and behold, obviously, because of the headache of finding a new venue, it's things like that drives it, Kevin. Now I've got a situation. I'll close a venue next week. I've got a venue for next year. And I'll go back to not having everyone with their hands in my pocket. And I get the opportunity to choose whether I want sponsors or not. It'd be a choice. Because right now it has to subsidize the low price tickets.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
You know what my favorite part of seller sessions is, right? I've been to a couple. My favorite part of the two security guard guys,
Yeah.
two ex
Special Armed
military,
Forces.
whatever they are, special. Yeah, those guys are always so serious walking around. I'm like, Danny, why do you're one of the only events where there's like these two guys with little radios over their ear and talking to each other and like checking everything out. And I was like, man, is it that bad? And I think you explained to me once, well, there's a lot of money in this room.
There is.
So but
it's
always like it's like something out of the movies, like something I would see out of a James Bond movie or something.
Do you know what? The ladies love it because it's like for Insta, they get them to walk them across, flank them and take pictures for Instagram. Like they turn them into their own pets. You know what I mean?
It's awesome.
So yeah, it's not anything to do with vanity or anything else. I've been in the promotions game 31 years and I've seen the unseen when it comes to events, the good, the bad and the ugly. And when and it's never normally on the event, but it's around the event. And my thing is safety first. So if someone goes, why have you got those guys? So one day I had to explain, these guys are not as expensive as you think. And I interviewed a couple of security people and I'm thinking, they'd be standing behind me if it went off. They'd be hiding behind me. How can I put someone out there like that? There was one guy, bless him, and I show respect to my older generation. He wouldn't turn the camera on Zoom. I'm thinking, this guy, he's got to be in his 70s, 80s. And he sounded like really serious. He knew his stuff and everything. I said, can you turn your camera on, please? He turned it on. He knew why, and I don't want to judge him. I said, look, I am not going to judge you. Like, we can discuss this. You've got other team members, you run the team. Like, I was happy because of his experience. The second thing is you don't want people on the door that are aggressive and you want them to be invisible in a way. If anything happened, no one really notices. And when you've got ex-Special Armed Forces who do royalty protection, they do Premier League, they look after Premier football players, and they've got that attitude where if you come to the event, I know you say they look scary, but people love them. They have conversations. Hello, Vass, how you doing? Because they're like normally regular guys. They may look serious, but they're good gentlemen, and the crowd like them, and they built relationships. You know, I know that some of my friends speak to them. I was actually at Catters a few weeks ago, and a friend of mine came to London, and I'm thinking, why is Ash phoning me? I think it's a bit weird, like, and it's miles off from the conference, and they both popped up on the phone just saying hi. Like they become friends. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's all down to safety for me. It's a premium price for a good night's sleep, because when I do the events, it's always with me. My main thing: does everyone get back safe? Because we do party, we do drink, and it's London, so they're more party than say some other countries and cities. You know, when they roll up. Do you remember that year when I think it was Anthony Lee and Casey Goss rolled in 6 o'clock in the morning? I was banging on his door. He's meant to be on stage. Were you at that one?
Yeah, I heard that one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then
So
you're usually DJ until late in the night.
yeah, yes.
Are you doing that again this year?
Yeah, I think I'll put Vinny on as well, because he gets. I know it gets a mixed response, but now it's set off a little trend. There's like all these DJs now at these events. Have you noticed? I started doing it a
I always
while.
remember the BDSS where it was a few years ago here in Austin, and it was I think I invited you to DJ, and then Leo was like, "Hey,
Yeah,
I can DJ too." And I was like, "All right, I'll bring both of you."
yeah,
And both of you were like, "Who is this guy? Does he actually know what he's doing?"
yeah. You
And
know
then,
what it
then when
was?
y'all got here, you came and like we're sorting out equipment and doing some testing, and then you both realized like, "All right, the other knows what they're doing." And
Yes,
then when we
it's
when we went
open
out
up.
to the when we went onto the boat, it was almost like it was this competition beforehand. And then when y'all got there, you're like, "All right, this is pretty cool. We can compliment each other."
Yeah.
And we did
Well, we
that
were
boat,
4 decks mixing, weren't we?
yeah, that
Two
boat
sets.
thing, and then we got rained out. So we like, and I remember we were like, "All right, that's it. Sorry, we got to call it early this afternoon." And then you or Leo or both of you, I think, came up to me and Mark and were like,
Mm,
"Is there somewhere else, like at the hotel? Because y'all were having so much fun,
yeah,
and everybody's having so much fun. We're like, is there somewhere where we can like just get a room?" And we thought about it, and then Mark found a studio, and we set up this like little impromptu rave, which that was really cool.
yeah. Neon
That was a cool
lights. It
time.
was was it his
Yeah.
photography studio, wasn't it? He had
Yeah,
like
it's a
it was like
photography
a set.
studio, and we
Mm,
just improvised like in
mm,
a matter of a couple hours, and set up
mm.
this whole little party. And you and Leo went on, and that was cool.
Yeah,
But speaking of other things, I mean, you you you're seeing some big changes in the agency business too. I mean, you've had Databril for a while now, and you got one of the
mm,
top data scientists in the world working with you as your partner, and you
mm,
guys do some amazing stuff. Doing a lot with Juana and Andrew, and on
yeah,
all the Rufus and Cosmos stuff. But I know we were chatting recently,
yeah,
and you sent me a couple messages about what you're seeing happen in this agency business, and how it's just becoming just dog after dog in that business. What are you seeing happening in this agency world? And you're making a few pivots, you said yourself,
yeah,
around what you're doing there. Can you?
yeah,
I think a lot of people don't realize what's happened and how this. Can you just
yeah.
explain that?
So me and Ellis, it was actually 7 years in March we've been going, and what you'll notice now, like when we started, look, competition's good, right? Because it raises competition raises, and it's better for everyone else. But what you've got is we've now got a market where there's maybe over 1,000 agencies, if not more, and then you
I've got
expect,
868 on a list
yeah,
from
I've
a
seen,
guy
but
that
that's been
compiled it.
curated.
Yeah, it's curated. So there's a lot more that I think that
Yeah,
someone told me there's 3,000. Who was it? Tom Shipley, I think,
yeah.
who said they got a list of like 3,700 people that have a shingle out that says they're an agency
There you go. Right,
in the
and
Amazon space.
and they come in all different shapes and sizes.
Yeah,
And as you
yeah.
know,
Some are
we never,
Pakistani guys, and some are big, huge agencies with
it goes
big
across
offices and a lot of people.
across the
Yeah,
scale. Yeah. So a number of things happened is because of that as well, and the changes in the market. The agency space is a commodity business, so you'd bounce from one to another because there isn't much separating them. There, and I know I joked with you, but it is kind of true, right? You got two things. You either got to develop something, which is what we're working on at the moment, and accept that because it's part of evolution. You got to have something that separates you. Like when we started, we were one of the only agencies in the space. that built our own technology, and we had the advantage because back then you got the percentage of ad spend if you're going to use software or it's not software managed, right? And that doesn't mean leave software to run. We've developed every line of code since we've started, right? So if you think we have flat rates, we've got Dr. Ellis, which I'm lucky to have. He splits the atom. You don't mind him being your account manager looking after stuff, as an example. And then what will happen when you look at the space, you can't pay engineers like Ellis. Like Ellis is the co-founder, and we pay ourselves our salaries. We're not paying ourselves huge amounts of money or anything. But if you put him out on the market as an engineer, you're looking at the top end of 175. Now, if you've got to pay an engineering team and then pay 100 grand or whatever it may be per head, if you're not running a sweatshop like some of them, then you've got to think that the numbers are not going to add up, right? But then over time, that's changed. Yeah, things evolve. Software's changed. There's ones where they've removed the percentage of ad spend because that's a killer for sellers, right? Because that ends up getting passed on to them. And then as you've seen over time, margins have been squeezed. It's more competitive to do PPC. And our experience is we've always been fine because I gave you the example, right? We are not super expensive. We're middle. We always focus on 7-figure sellers. I've never taken on anyone below 7-figure sellers because I don't believe you should do that, because the sellers should be keeping their money in their business for growing their business to get to a stage where they actually need to output that as a department if they wanted to, and keep the money for inventory. Yeah. So what we experienced is we had a very, very low churn rate. My customers, I've had 6 years, not 3 months, 6 months, because they're not being promised magical strategies that don't exist from a sales team. But what's happened over time, because me and some of my clients, so we've sat down and we have a joke. Like a weekly joke is, what's the magical strategy of the week? And now that's kind of developed is like, right now, the only thing, and agencies won't like me to say this, right? You're going to be separated by something that you do is different from others, right? Or it's your sales team. They're going to be the two demanding factors. Like, so what you'll find, and I've seen this, and as I said, we sit down and we go with magical strategy of the week, and the clients will have a joke about it, and we go back and forth. But as you've seen things going on, there's more panic out there, yeah, and obviously, and it should be rightly so, depending on what your views are. Agencies are getting the kicked out of them on LinkedIn because the old divide and conquer, because you have to have an enemy for this. Like if we look at it, everyone loved the aggregators, and because it gave them really good opportunity to exit, yeah, until it crashed. So then you had the cycle, aggregators get the shit kicked out of them. Then we had the giveaway thing. They all got the shit kicked out of them. Currently, it's the agencies. They'll get the shit kicked out of them. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but it's cycles. People need stuff to get on, right? And then something else will come along. Like everyone shits on Amazon for the sneaky fees and that. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when you add all of those in the mix, and then you've got sellers who are struggling, and eventually they want to believe in those strategies. Do you understand what I mean? It's like you get to a point, it's like, well, I'll give it a go, even if they don't kind of believe it. And there are good agencies out there, I'm not going to lie, but there are shocking people. And actually, about 18 months ago, I'd done a 10,000 word article breaking down the whole agency model from magical software that you do 12-month deal in, and now that all breaks down and stuff like that. So it gives people education to know, what do you want to pick? Like, I'm not interested in selling it to people. I want people to come to me and I solve a problem. If I can't solve their problem, you need to go somewhere else, because at the end of the day, their business is the most important thing. Yeah. So what's happened over that time, we've been okay with that and no churn. And then we lost a very big client, and then 2 after that. And then it was like, right. And then I had to do layoffs. But what I did was, I had an option. You go carry on this path. Me and Ellis knew that we need to adapt anyway. All it's done is put the accelerator button on to do that. And I had to let some staff go. But what I've done is I've helped them. They're all out getting interviews, and hopefully by the end of the month, they're all employed. So Karma's taking care of there. And then me and Ellis are going to do what we're doing now. We still got the agency, and we're still going to be doing PPC because we're still servicing our customers. But we do realize this. And there's a few, some of the younger guys in the space have come to me and sit down and give them a bit of guidance because they're concerned, right? They've got factoring CFOs in, to make sure ends meet. But I do see a thing which will come up where if you're trying to scale but you've got this churn, because a lot of people are churning, don't believe what you read on LinkedIn.
They bounce from they last about 2 or 3 months on average or something like that.
Yeah, I think
And
what
then
happens.
they bounce either because they feel you're not performing or it's not something was overpromised and underdelivered, or someone else just comes in and says, I'll do it cheaper.
Absolutely, and that's fine. Like, competition's healthy, Kevin, right? It needs to be in place. So I'm not bitter or anything. I'm like, we did this as we did for 7 years, and we had a position. Do you see what I mean? But when you've seen the changes in Amazon and the prices going down, it's not good enough to go, oh yeah, we're going to start taking on, we'll do listing optimization. And one of the reasons we never ever did full service, I actually looked into it and I thought, for me personally, I can't speak for other agencies. I'm like, for what though? Right. So PPC plays a role, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that could be anywhere from 15 to 35% of your sales, roughly. Yeah. Depend on the. So you're still playing a role in generating sales. So that adds value. But if you look at full service agency, how many of them do product development? How many of them are dealing with the headaches of logistics, shipping, and everything else? So what are you left over with? You're going to have daily routine checks on Seller Central, right? You're going to do some listing optimization. I mean, how many times you're going to optimize the listing? Every month? For how long? 3 years? Let's be realistic, right? You don't optimize the shit out of something that works. You optimize it to the point where you've got it where you want it to be, and then you optimize when it drops, yeah? So unless you're not measuring, and I've seen people do that, like just upload images. Oh, hopefully it does well. I've just changed the main image. I'm like, you haven't even run an Amazon experiment. What's the fucking matter with you? Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't do that because that will just crater people's businesses. So you've got that, and I looked at that model, and I'm trying to think of his name. Ex-Amazonian had a successful agency, and I think he still has. Really nice guy, Brad. You know him as well.
Brad Moss.
Brad Moss, right? He was one of the first to scale back then. We're talking 2019 because we launched in 2018, and I was looking into what do we do? Do we do full service? And I just couldn't see any value in it. Me personally, I can't speak for anyone else, right? Because I'm like, how many demand? A lot of the stuff, not now, but a lot of stuff, if you think back then, as we've evolved now. If an Amazon seller's got 60 hours a week they're putting into a business on average, 45 to 60 hours a week, how the fuck are you going to be able to do what they do and you're managing 10 accounts? It's not scalable.
It's hard to get good people too. People always say, who's a good agency? And I always say, well, it depends. I mean, someone's going to have a good experience with this one and someone's going to have a bad experience. It's all who you get.
It's two things, actually. It's two things.
It's who you get in that agency, whether that person is, there's a lot of factors there. So I can't say this is the best agency.
There's two things. Is the agency competent? Right. Let's have it right. When you look at it, as much as you can pretend otherwise, PPC has got more complex, agreed, right?
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, it's an amplifier. And then what happens when you're at top of search and the person doesn't buy? You've been amplified. There's two parts to this. That's why you have to be selective, right? Mm-hmm. Because someone takes on a client, and if it's not going to work pretty much straight away. I've seen over 1,000 accounts. Your job is to turn that down, thank them, give them some guidance, not take on that and then promise them. Because at the end of the day, and I've asked this question, and hopefully you'll be the one person who can tell me a better metric. Can you tell me, and I've never asked you directly before, is there a greater metric that will move the needle than understanding your customer objections and then having the ability to fix it? No AI, nothing. No, remember what I just said.
Core is this: you got to know the psychological triggers that motivate your avatar. That if you know that, it's not the copy is copy.
Yeah.
Ads are ads and everything else, but you have to know. You should spend more time fully understanding, getting inside the head of your ideal customer, what their pain points are, what their pleasure points are, and once you understand that, then everything else comes later. And most people do it the other way around, or
Absolutely.
they don't know, they don't even know what that stuff is.
And
And that's
understanding, that understanding your customer objections doesn't bring you any guarantees, but it reduces the pain. And if you consider time is money, let me give an example, right? This is how it generally works. People will do their research, AI, otherwise, very diligent. Look, they're like scientists, our sellers, right? They're really good, and they take their time. And what they do is they go and look at someone else's reviews, right? And do all the other things. They understand the market, the customer, who their customer, their profiling. Then they look at the competition. They'll look at their reviews and say, I've got an idea here. I'm going to build a better mousetrap, right? Based on their reviews. Then they go, I've done all my research now. I've built a better mousetrap. I'm good. They're all going to buy this. And then they take it into production.
better doesn't mean.
And then they build this mousetrap, this Frankenstein mousetrap in most cases, respectfully. I'm not talking, because it's hard to innovate from scratch, right? So they build something better quality, all these kind of things, add all this complexity, change the color, whatever they're doing, right? So they've done all of this research, and then they go and blow a load of cash on a launch, load of PPC, right? And they're entrepreneurs. So what do? My gut says this is right. Keep going. All right, another 5 grand, 10 grand, bam, bam. Because entrepreneurs, what do? They're single-minded. They ain't going to listen to people. They got there for a reason, not through listening to everyone. Unfortunately, if they spent $200, $300, $400 and then said, put it in front of a number of people and said, what are your objections to buying this product? So you've just done all this dough on everything else. You've blown a load of cash, but you didn't do that bit. And that would have been something that helped you with all the bleed on PPC and everything else. Because just because you built a great product, just because you use post-purchase reviews, 2 different things. A customer objection and a post-purchase review are 2 completely different things. Why is that? They've already bought the product and they go, I love it, or this is the piece, give me my money back, or somewhere in between. There's no objection to buying it. They got over the hump to buy it. They just felt it was great, or they felt cheated in a way because they go, I didn't expect that. It's not good quality. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. If you're able to get the customer objections and then work out how you can measure those and do some stuff where you may be able to optimize and improve, that will do more to your conversion rate than pretty much anything else. Because in order to have a conversion rate, you need to make a sale. So if you're at top of search and no one's buying or less people buying, what happens to your conversion rate? So therefore, that metric, for me, is undefeated. I'm asking people, is there a better metric than that? And again, I'll say, it doesn't mean it's guaranteed, because you might find it's not fit for market. The only thing for that, you could put that to bed. Like the idea is, when we're on Amazon, you build through SKUs, right? Keep growing, put out more products, you refine it, and then you find a way, the quickest way to get away with the products that failed at the lowest impact possible and the fastest speed. Yeah. So you launch, you keep, you lose. You launch, you keep, you lose, and you find a cycle in there, right? And this is why a lot of brands would die if they're not launching new products and they don't have a product pipeline. But just that bit there, skipping that, Kevin, is really fundamental, right? You've decided what the customer wants. You've decided to build something based on someone else's products through post-purchase reviews. Yet you ask no one, what is your objection to buy my product? And do you know what?
The number one people to ask on that is not a mistake people make on that point is they ask the people that don't buy, why did you not buy my product? And that's the wrong thing to do. Absolutely. You want to ask the people who did buy, what made you almost not buy this?
That's another good question. That's a good objection.
That's a big difference in understanding, and people make a lot of times that they go after the wrong side of that. And you want people who bought, what made you almost not buy? Yeah. Not the people who didn't buy. Why didn't you buy? Because those people might not have bought anyway. They're just going to say something. But the people that bought, they overcame something. But what did they overcome in their mind? And what do you need to do to double down on that objection to make sure other people don't back off?
Yeah, because basically you're looking for patterns, right? Let's say you do it 100, 200, 300 people. If you ask him and Product Opinion Boys and others, it's an iteration process as well. Like you can also do it pre-launch. So you can mock up the product and have it simulated and get some ideas of, because there's certain things you won't see. I'll give you
I used to do dry testing. back in the day, because you can use Product Opinion or PickFu or Intellivier or any of those guys, and that's good. You should. You can get a base idea. But at the end of the day, people speak with their wallet. People will say one thing and do something
Do
totally
another.
different.
I agree. That's
So
why the patterns are.
I used to do split testing
Mm.
with pricing on a website where one price was $19.95 and one was $9.95, and they had to actually go through the whole process, enter their credit card and everything, and then we just didn't charge them. We just held it, and we just did a test that way. But that way, they went through the motions, and we knew, okay, for sure which one works.
Yeah. No, look, as I said, there's no guarantees, but I'll give you some examples that you probably would never really find out. We had a situation once where a client was usual one leading the market, right? And couldn't work it. It just died off, blamed, like Chinese come in and couldn't recover it. And it's got multi-variations, right? So we run some tests, customer objection tests on it. And what we found out is I really like the green widget, but I prefer the color pink. So what happened, because this had like 5,000 reviews and that was always the winner, right? It's like the focus was on that, but it was the wrong focus. The reason why the other people bought the other product is because they preferred the color pink. And to address that, it didn't recover fully, but to address that, they led with the pink and then they performed better. You would never have found that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because you're looking in the wrong places. And that's what I mean by you do enough tests and, you do 100, 200, 300, 400 people and 30, 40% or more are saying, yeah, but I prefer the pink. I prefer the pink. I prefer the pink. And you're like, well, I got a pink skew. Should we lead with that version? Do you know what I mean? The pink variation, sorry. It's things like that you don't find out. And when you spend 6 months dropping a couple of grand on, maybe updating your A+ content and stuff, are you guessing? Oh, I better get more images done. Let's move that over there. Let's get some more lifestyle images. Let's do that. Let's change the bullet points. That takes time, especially if you're going to test it, right? Well, that didn't work. It might be a few $100 test. Now, what we should understand as well, a lot of people don't test. And the expectancy of the results of tests. Like, Dorian Gorski, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
You know Dorian? Number one in the world in our game when it comes to stopping the scroll. I'd like to see anyone challenge that. He's been doing this 10 years. He cut his teeth doing Ash Thompson, who hit 100 million and exited. You've met Ash.
Yeah.
He does all sim stuff and highly respected. He's got to a point, he's got it down to a fine art that he is got it down to 60% failure rate of his tests. So every 100 tests he runs, 60, I don't move the needle or fail. And that's 10 years. And that's good. Do you understand? I think with the expectancy, someone runs it and go, oh, that's shit. That didn't do it. That's crap. And that's the problem. It's you refine it over time, like every other process. And I think we have to move more towards this now. It's like you're going to have full stack engineers in your Amazon business, especially not maybe full stacks, junior and some prompt engineering work. You're going to have a tech team working with you from your data to your listings. You've seen this firsthand, right? People that have set up automation, they've got N8N running or make.com or on the lower level they use Zapier, and that's where we're moving.
That's all the AI stuff, and you've been diving deep in some of that too with Juana and Andrew with some pretty deep dives on researching, analyzing the research papers and what's going on with Rufus and Cosmo. Where did that come from? What made you decide to do that? And you put out some really good breakdowns of that.
Yeah, I mean, back in 2020 is where I got interested in it, and I don't know what it is, but for me, I remember when I was with you and Steve in Australia a couple of years ago, I've always said, look, science isn't about being right. It's about getting to the truth. And it don't matter who gets there. Everyone wins, right? And thank you to you, because it's been ignored for the last 4 years until pretty pictures appeared and they called it Cosmo. So suddenly it was acceptable. Science paper has become acceptable because Cosmo was like a colouring book, right? Because it had some pictures. So that becomes
a little dog with Rufus.
Yeah, now we've got the dog with Rufus, which there's some interesting stories I have to tell you about that. But the situation with that is I really wanted to understand, and it does take a long time, right? Because I heard you on the podcast with Juana said like people are vehemently opposed to the honeymoon period doesn't exist and everything else. And the thing is, they should have that opinion because that's what they see. I'm not here to question you. I'm not here to tell you you can't. I'm just going, okay, look, there is a 10,000 word article, there's 2 patents, and I've charted everything you call the honeymoon period from 2015 in paper form. You've read it, Kevin, and we spent 200 hours on it.
That was Andrew Lee that coined that term, by the way.
I know. And
Yeah.
he's also the one who denounced it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So the thing is you're going to get a thing there and people get pushed back. And I don't mind being wrong, and I'm not trying to be right. Like if people say, I don't agree with that because such and such, it's a beautiful discussion, right? I mean, I had that clown world moment on LinkedIn with an idiot last year who offered the MMA fight, but it's like, but that wasn't about anything other than attention seeking. Do you know what I mean? Because you see this. I won't go into it and keep bringing it up, but you're going to get some people just want the attention for the sake of it. Some people are bought into it, and I totally understand why. Like, look at the oxymoron of this. The honeymoon period is an observation, but it doesn't exist. But it exists only as an observation. Let me explain. Right. So it's called the cold start. Yeah. So you go to an Amazon engineer and you go, oh yeah, the honeymoon period. He'll have no fucking idea what you're talking about. So the honeymoon period is an observation that was created by us. And what we try to do is sketch out that observation. So when you drop an article to explain that, it gets their back up. So basically it's like I'm gaslighting them to say there's no honeymoon period, even though the honeymoon period doesn't exist. I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? And we don't do this to gut people's asses and, oh, let's piss that person off. Let's say there's no honeymoon period for some attention. Why would we waste 200 hours and then give it all away? It's because we want people to move forward with what's going on out there. And when you do things like that, people are going to push back, and that's fine, right? And they're going to ridicule you. They'll talk about you behind your back, and that's absolutely fine. But as you've seen yourself, Kevin, things have changed. Yeah. So every time we got Rufus the dog and then the clown world kicks off, what happens is it ends up being in the search bar. Oh, this ain't going to take off. 2 days later, it's in the search bar. Oh, this, and then something else happens. And you're not going to stop it, right? And then they'll go, the same people that would say that will then say, yeah, no, I've been on this a while now. Yeah, and it's like, no, you're not. You're just switching sides. So we stand where we stand. Warner and Andrew, and there's a few of us, we're trying to push things and trying to find easier and easier way to break it down. So when we did Rufus, we took the learnings from doing the cold reality of the honeymoon period, and because there was a certain person I highly respect who was he was like, it was a bit dense. I struggled to read it, and I'm like, well, that's useless to do another article and no one can understand it when your end goal is to help people understand and give it away so it becomes useful. That's why Rufus was a lot different to the last one. You could easily read that and digest that versus that. And that's our goal. We're trying to get better at doing that. How do we get the information over to people and let them make up their own mind, but don't feel a way about it? It's like, oh, he's just trying to be clever, because we're not. It does take time to break that stuff down, and it takes time to learn how to break it down and then trying to deliver it, So that's where we are with it. And again, because of you, we're not still in the dark ages, because you put your
I feel that it's the future, and it's the writing's on the wall for it. And you see this, it's slowly, like you just said, people deny it. Then 2 days later, here it is in the search bar. It's coming.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of sellers. Something I've been saying is there's a lot of people doing millions of dollars of sales right now that are not paying attention.
Yeah.
And including software companies that, some of the biggest names in the space that are not really paying attention, and people are still going by the old way.
Yeah.
And right now you got to kind of ride the line between the two. But if you're not preparing to move to this new reality, a new way of doing things, your $5 million a year in sales is going to go to 500,000.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see a shakeout, just like you're seeing the shakeout in some of the agency business.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see in the next few years a big shakeout there. And on top of that, you have this whole agentic agents stuff, like you just touched on, where I think that's going to, the make.com automations, or the Zapier is the easiest. Then make.com is the middle one.
Kevin, we're beyond that now.
N8N is the detailed one.
We're beyond
So
that now. We're at Skynet level. We're talking about
yeah,
autonomous on your computer editing videos. I've
yeah,
seen it
no,
in my
no.
own.
I mean, just look what just happened with ChatGPT with what you can do with photos a couple weeks
Yeah,
ago. And I mean, how that put a lot of people out of business, software companies out of business.
yeah,
Just it's going to get to. And I don't think a lot of people realize this. The people that are on the cutting edge of it understand where this is going and how fast it's moving.
yeah.
But the average Amazon seller, their idea of AI is use ChatGPT to analyze my reviews,
Well, this
or
is
to help me write an email,
yeah,
or something like that. They don't get beyond the little basic core things how this is going to revolutionize everything in the next 5
yeah.
years,
No,
or sooner.
I got excited last night. I got Milan, one of my engineer guys,
This was at
because
3 a.m., right?
I was starting at
You mean
3
this
a.m.
morning?
today, but last night I looked at it because with Claude, you can make Claude autonomous, but the problem with it is I've set it up on Docker, and then we programmed it in with the terminal because I'm
Mhm.
hoping like, oh great, so Claude can do this as well. So I'll give it some actions. I'll start with clearing up my Google Drive, etc., and then see where it goes from there. Because the stuff I've seen, and I've signed up for the research release, so I'm waiting to get in. But I mean, we're talking about editing videos in Premiere Pro, this level on your
Yeah,
desktop.
no, no, no. I mean, just yesterday,
Yeah,
I was trying to embed something in one of my apps,
mm,
and I'm searching online. I'm looking through their support docs. I'm looking through everything. How do I actually get this embed code to work?
yeah,
And I couldn't find anything. So I was like, let me just take a screenshot of this error message that's coming up,
mm,
with all the and throw that in ChatGPT and say, how do I fix this?
yeah,
And it came back with here's 5 things to try. Do
yeah,
this, and number 4 worked.
yeah,
I mean, it knew better than any human could, and it gave me the answer just like that. And I know a lot of people, they're at that level, but that's just a basic thing of what these things can do on their own autonomously, and start and just like in the agency stuff, I think you're going to see a lot of change in the agency business. The ones that survive are going to be much less people, and you're going to have a lot of these agents doing this. And I think the people, like you said, what's your differentiating factor on an
mm,
agency? I
yeah,
think it's the people that are on the cutting edge of the software and the technology
yeah,
that are always one step ahead, are going to be the ones that win, not the ones that are a commodity doing the same old stuff.
yeah. And there's, I think we have to also, and I'll try and explain this in a positive way. Is right now, engineers are far from scared of AI. And the reason
And
being is
it
not because
empowers
they're,
them.
well, one, it empowers them. The other thing is even with me with the no code platforms, I'm sitting here building apps that work functional in the browser like apps and useful to, or at least hope they be useful that I'm doing, and then I get my engineering team to port over. So with the tools of building for seller sessions, I've got them all in there, and I just send them the code, and then from there we can work from there. But the point I was going to get to, like you said a couple of weeks ago about the prompting, what it's allowed to do, and it's amazing, is it's give you that next level up. Let's say that, are you any good with Photoshop, Kevin? Like a whiz? Can you do drop
I'm
shadows? You can, yeah.
Yeah, I can do the basic stuff. I'm not a whiz, but I can do the basic stuff.
Okay. So imagine what you can now do with ChatGPT by articulating an eloquent prompt with the right details. You get an output, right? So what's happened is the output's changed. It's got better. So you get excited. So let me give you an example. Let's say you buy your images off Fiverr, Upwork, junk shit that you get on now. And there would be 2 reasons you buy them. And not everyone's blessed with an eye for design because they're brilliant at everything else. Their just
Mhm.
design might not be their thing. So they might go, oh yeah, that looks good. And then when they prompt something, they go, looks amazing. So what they've got is an improved output. We said this on my pod a little while ago. Mark's a photographer. You start talking about aperture and those kind of things. Who's going to get better output? So let's talk prompt engineering. A junior developer with 3 years of experience in a couple of languages and a vibe coder, who do you think comes out on top? The difference between the levels, the domain
Vibe coder
knowledge.
that has the experience is the one that comes out on top.
However, the good thing about the other person is the input. So they might not get
Yeah, that's
what
what I
the
mean.
engineer,
They know how
it's
to
the
they know how to prompt
ideas.
it.
It's the ideas, right?
Yeah.
So we're in that gap, right? You're in that gap where you've got no code, but you can't fix it when it starts to go off if you know nothing about coding. You have to get that person to help you to fix it and correct it, right? But you're getting the output, yeah? And then an engineer would need to clean it up so it's functional. Then if you've got a seller that's prompting their images, great, because it's going to be a better output than they could do in Photoshop if they're not a designer. So you go, great, saves me money. It doesn't mean that image is good. It's good to you because of what you know and the nuances around design, right? So if you're an engineer, you would see prompting, there's, not that they'll snigger or anything else like that, but there's a difference from prompting, running all the APIs and everything else and having that level because of what you can do with that and how you can put stuff together. Another example, we share a friend who was and he's worried about it. And I'm coming around to the point of this because the point would be important. Legal guy that was at your event, don't name his name. We had a private conversation and I said to him, look, you're a lawyer. I said, it comes back down to domain knowledge, right? Like my lawyer, I can knock up contracts in ChatGPT, right? And my lawyer would pull it apart because he'll know all the nuances because he's a lawyer and how you get fucked over. But to me, it looks the bollocks, right? It's all in legalese and it looks great. So we've got that element there. And so the point I'm trying to get round to is domain knowledge will win unless ideas outweigh it. So the idea of the engineer, I'll give you an example. I was a record producer and I was a self-taught engineer. I put out maybe 50, 60, 70 records, 2 albums, mix album, collaborations. As soon as I trained properly as an engineer, as I started teaching, I went through the ranks and technically come better an engineer. I couldn't fucking write. Why? Because it wasn't exciting anymore. I knew how to make that bass line. I would spend 3 hours fiddling because I knew the parameters to change, put it through the envelope and then the low pass filter and change. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you've got engineers. If you look at it in the studio, you've got the record producer, you've got the artist, you've got the engineer. The engineer puts the output out, the sound really good, but it's the producer that vibes up the musician. So they all kind of work together, right? So the engineer is not going to be very good as a singer doing falsetto if he's just some scruffy engineer, but he could do it. He just wouldn't be as good. And so what happens, you get an artificial lift through prompting, and that's not to downsize anything. And I think what we're going to come into is we get on to discussing Manus, right? So someone goes, oh yeah, I'll just do this and build it on Manus and everything else. And they'll focus on this. So there's a couple of things to think about in terms of the focus. And it's the same with NAN. Are you going to set up NAN to message back your mum through WhatsApp and, I don't know, some other application? Or are you going to build something that's going to move the needle and move your business forward? Are you going to use them for the right things? And what I experienced with everything that's going on with my businesses, I literally solved everything I needed to solve. And I'm not a prompt engineer. Friday, Saturday and Sunday, bank holiday weekend. I spent 16 hours a day, roughly, give or take, for a week on Manus. And I knew there was something in there. I burnt a shit ton of tokens. I got my account and I just keep buying 39,000. I don't give a fuck. You just spend because you get results. And with that, because I was able to solve all my things because Manus gave me the opportunity. Whereas some people might be going, oh yeah, we'll just we'll do some copywriting and stuff. No, don't use it for that. You're an Amazon seller struggling at the moment. You need to come up with solutions. You've got things like Manus there. It's the questions that you ask. Yes, you want to be able to prompt, but you'd be surprised of how many problems you can solve. So hence, I had someone come to me the other day, a good friend of mine, you would know him as well. He's struggling, and I knew the phone call was, got any money, Dan? Like, I'm struggling and da-da-da. And then I put him on to Manus, set a few things up for him. He's able to fix those solutions because he asked the right questions. So what I'm trying to propose to Amazon sellers is don't look at AI as a replacement for something. Use it to help you get it out of this shit that you are in with margins. Instead of fucking around on Manus, trying to do, listing optimization, use it for that, or waste of time. You might as well use Claude. Why burn all the tokens? But if you really want to think about improving your business, you've got to think about asking the right questions. Yeah. And that is something that I think people struggle with. They don't know what questions to ask because they don't know what the problem is to solve. And that's why it took me 16 hours a day going down rabbit holes till I come to the solution. And that solution was to solve pretty much everything that's going on around me. I've got a new venue for seller sessions next year, so I won't have everyone in my hands in my pocket. And I can choose whether to have sponsors or not. Because you know yourself, when you put on events, you've got that pressure. Like last year, I turned down 22 sponsors disguised as speaking gigs. That's a lot of money. Yeah. But as soon as you break that line, I will lose my seller sessions crowd and I won't be able to sell it out. So my thing is, how do I get back to before everyone's got my hands in my pockets and you're being leaned on and they've got some demands where you want to compromise. So another part of that, because I've given codes out to everyone that I've spoken to that have been struggling, go and do this. And they're getting results, Kevin, because they're asking the right question.
Well, Danny, we've been going here for a while. We've got to I think we could keep talking for several more hours. But this has been great. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing everything from what's going on at Seller Sessions and the event industry to what's going on the agency side, how people need to use AI, and what's going on with Amazon. This has been we've covered a lot of bases.
Well, hopefully it's useful. I know it's not always orthodox with what I've just said there, because everyone will speak about prompting and everything else.
No, it's good stuff. It's stuff that people need to hear and to get their head around.
Because the last part of that, sorry, just to cut in, Kevin, the last part of that, where we're moving is we can get so much output from AI, but how do you have time to implement it, right?
Exactly.
So if I can see the domain knowledge thing, think of like your accounts team that are doing laborious tasks. AI whips through that, replaces all that. What are they? They're the safety valve.
Mm-hmm.
Their domain knowledge, they come at the end to the checks and balances. And I think that's where it's going to be really powerful as well. Domain knowledge, it will reduce a lot of labor, but then we move to the mind economy. That experience is still valuable, so you can still scale. Does that make sense? A lot of people are like proud of themselves out there on LinkedIn. I sacked 10 people. That's 10 families out of job, and you're proud of yourself. But for me, it's like AI. If you can use your domain knowledge, I think that's where the win is, and able to implement after and have the checks and balances in place. You're gonna do very well.
Well, if people want to reach out and learn more about what you're up to, or read some of your papers that you guys are working on, or what's the best way to do that, or come to Seller Sessions, or listen to your podcast? I mean, what's the best?
Hit the podcast, sellersessions.com, or on all the podcatchers. We're sold out now as of yesterday, finally. Yeah. So we've got to deliver that in a couple of weeks. But, if refunds come up, I've got it on the website now where we're sold out. You can put your email address in now when you come to the ticket page, because people can still buy dinners for the conference for the delegates. But then if we get refunds, we put it out to the list and then mark them back and then transfer them over to the new people's on the list.
So sellersessions.com is the best way to get. Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Awesome.
Dave. All right, Kevin.
Danny, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
So I hope you enjoyed my chat with Danny McMillan. We'll be back again next week with another amazing episode. And if you like this episode, be sure to hit subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you like this episode or any other episode, be sure to go and forward it to a friend and let them know about the AM/PM podcast, as well as Helium 10 Elite. You can always go to h10.me/elite and find out more about Helium 10 Elite, which I host training and a live call every single month. Before I leave you, just got some words of wisdom for you. While you're hustling and doing the grind, remember to enjoy it along the way, because one day you're going to have no time to enjoy anything again. Take care, and we'll see you again next week.